Mario Kart World hasn't been out long, but it's already managed to be one of Nintendo's biggest controversies of all time. In America, a copy of Mario Kart World will cost you $80, and this is the first time in history Nintendo have ever marked their game so high. Now, I've been playing Mario Kart World, and I would go as far as to say I actually think this is probably the best Mario Kart game we've ever got. But let's be honest here, it's still Mario Kart. We know what we're getting into, and as much as I love the game, $80 is kind of insane. That being said, I do think it's kind of insane how the whole internet is getting mad at people for paying this much for the game, when in actuality, none of the people who are playing Mario Kart World have paid that much. You see, Mario Kart World comes in a bundle with the Switch 2, which roughly equates to the game's value costing $50, so anyone who's got Mario Kart World already is most likely just purchased it in the bundle, therefore not paid $80. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because there is a much deeper and richer controversy surrounding this game I don't think enough people are talking about. When Nintendo first presented their Switch 2 Direct, they showcased some gameplay of the new Mario Kart World, and along with that, they showed that how in this Mario Kart game, you can play as a whole bunch of characters from the Mario universe that you've never really previously been able to play as, such as everybody's favorite, cow. In this Mario Kart game, you can also eat drive-thru food, which is a first, and this, combined with the previous fact, made a lot of people pay attention to this disturbing image. This, as we all know, is cannibalism, when one creature eats its own flesh or of its own species. But I believe this cow, why did they name it cow, by the way, not something like Moo Moo, just cow. But anyway, I believe this cow isn't the only culprit of eating its own kind, as every character in this game is available to eat any dish there is in Mario Kart World. So today I'm gonna go through every single playable character in Mario Kart World and compare them against every single dish they can eat to find out how many of these characters are actually, doing the thing that you're not supposed to do. Why? I have no idea. First, we have Mario himself, and as pretty much every scenario this guy is in, he's plain and boring and in fact a responsible eater. Just a note here though, if you do play Mario in Mario Kart, not just any, but especially this one, please just seek medical attention. Next is Luigi, and of course he is just Mario's brother, so another responsible eater. Now, as much as I would like to classify Peach as a peach, and it does seem like there are at least desserts in this game that could be peach flavored, she's just a human as well, and so she is a responsible eater. Yoshi is an interesting one, because at first Yoshi may immediately just seem innocent, but Yoshi is in fact a dinosaur. And Mario Kart World introduces a specific type of meal called prehistoric roasts, and you find these in the dinosaur themed courses, and so I can only assume the meat contained in these, prehistoric roasts are in fact dinosaur, therefore are in fact of Yoshi's species, and therefore in fact Yoshi is an irresponsible eater. And this is even more weird because in this game, Yoshi are sometimes the people who serve the food, meaning Yoshi are serving Yoshi themselves. Next is Toad, and Toad is clearly a mushroom. It's been actually confirmed by Nintendo that the toad on his head isn't just a hat, but actually his biology, and belongs to his body just as much as his arms and legs. Not only can you obviously get the mushroom power-up in this game, but you can also get a food item called shish kebab, which do contain a mushroom on top. So yeah, Toad is an irresponsible eater. And if that wasn't enough, you can even get a costume for Toad called the Burger Bud, which means this guy is just doubly irresponsible. And Toad's partner in crime, Toadette, is just the same as Toad. Her mushroom is not a hat, it's a part of her head, therefore she is also an irresponsible eater. And just like Toad, she also has a food-based costume, that being the soft server. And no, I know it's called a costume, but I don't believe it. If the mushrooms are part of the head, so is this ice cream, therefore double irresponsible eater. Koopa Troopers, I think, are pretty safe in this scenario, as although you can throw Koopa shells, and there does seem to be some Koopa-themed food in the game, I believe this is just purely decoration, meaning Koopa Trooper is a responsible eater. And all of the above applies to Bowser as well, as evil as he is, he would never eat his own kind, another responsible eater. Pauline is another human character, therefore she is a responsible eater, but I would just like to take this opportunity to point out the fact that Pauline only gets one costume in this game, which is especially weird considering she's rumored to be in the new 3D Donkey Kong game. Daisy has always made me feel uncomfortable for some reason, but she is in fact a human, therefore a responsible eater. Rosalina, although she clearly has some magic powers going on, is just rumored to be another human, therefore a responsible eater. But I would again like to use this opportunity to point out the fact that Luma isn't in the game, which I just think is really sad. And with that being said, baby Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, and baby Rosalina are all human, therefore responsible eaters, as are their costumes. Now, I don't know what kind of creature Shy Guy is, and apparently neither does the internet. I mean, his whole thing is that he hides behind the mask, and we've actually never seen what Shy Guy actually looks like behind it. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to give Shy Guy the benefit of the doubt and assume whatever behind this mask is not eating itself, therefore he is a responsible eater. Nabbit is a similar creature, as we don't know exactly what kind of creature he is, but if it wasn't obvious enough, we can probably assume he derives from some sort of rabbit. Now, there are a variety of dishes in Mario Kart World that contain meat, but not all of them clearly state what kind of meat is in the dish, unless it's implied like we talked about with the dinosaur food and the shish kebab. So I wanted to know the odds of any of this meat on the menu being rabbit, and so I looked at the global ranking of meat production, placing at number 11, just behind horse? So I'm gonna guess the odds of rabbit being on the menu is pretty low, so I'm gonna assume Nabbit is a responsible eater. Piranha Plant, would you believe it, is a plant, and there are lots of plants on the menu and leaves, so he's definitely a responsible eater. If he's not eating his own species, in the mainline Mario games, he's trying to eat Mario himself. Hammer Bro just seems to be a Koopa Trooper who has a job and a temper, and as much as he is angry, I think he's a responsible eater. Now, there are no moles on the menu, so Monty Mole is a responsible eater, but even if they were, I wouldn't blame him since, you know, he's blind. Goomba, as we all know, is a living and breathing mushroom. There are mushrooms on the menu, and therefore Goomba is eating his own, therefore an irresponsible eater. Sidestepper is a crab, of course. So I looked up if crabs are ever used in sushi, and apparently they are, although what surprised me is there is a subcategory of sushi called imitation crab, which uses fish to imitate the flavor of crabs. And I don't know much about sushi, but why not just put crab in it? But that being said, there is so much sushi in this game, I can't help but assume that one of them's gotta contain crab, which means Sidestepper is an irresponsible eater. Cheep Cheep is a fish, and not only have we established there is sushi in this game, but there is literally fish and chips, meaning double irresponsible eater. Dry bones are skeletons, and not just any skeleton, they are sentient skeletons. Therefore, even though they don't have any traditional flesh, you could argue that the bones they are made of are their flesh. Now, where in Mario do you find dry bones? Well, Bowser's Castle. And you know what else you can find in Bowser's Castle in Mario Kart World? Lava curry, which sounds horrible, but lava curry, if we look at it, contains bone. And I can only assume that bone belongs to Dry Bones, meaning Dry Bones is an irresponsible eater. If he eats the bone, I guess. We're gonna assume he's weird, so he does. Wiggler, like his name and many legs suggest, is based on a caterpillar, and as we can all assume, caterpillar is not on the menu, meaning Wiggler is a responsible eater. Cow. I think it's pretty safe to assume that the cows from Moo Moo Meadows are indeed eating themselves, therefore irresponsible eaters. Sting Bee can be found as a decoration on the honey pancakes, and although the honey pancakes contain honey, like we've established, that isn't their own flesh. If we look closely at these honey pancakes, we can see honeycomb, and it looks like to me that honeycomb might be filled with lava. Larvae? Is it larvae or lava? Okay, I found a 1-minute video on YouTube that apparently is how to say that word, and it lasts a minute long, okay? Larve. Okay. But anyway, in the honey pancakes, I'm pretty sure you can see larvae in those honeycomb, which means yes, they're eating their young. And apparently bees do this, by the way, if their nest is low on pollen, so Sting Bee is an irresponsible eater. King Boo and Peeper are ghosts, and I don't think you can eat ghosts, although this bread basket does have a cool Boo decorated bread on it, but yeah, I don't think they're eating themselves, so these ghosts are responsible eaters. Snowman is made of snow, therefore ice. Ice cream. Irresponsible eater. Parabidibud, which is a stupid name by the way, are some sort of ladybird, so Responsible eaters, as weird as this guy is, I don't trust this guy. I don't know, or lady, I guess. I don't trust them. Lakitu and Bowser Jr. are some sort of descendant of Koopas, therefore no, they do not eat themselves. Birdo, by most fans, is assumed to be some sort of relative to Yoshi, at least in a species sense, and therefore we know she's eating her own kind, dinosaurs that is, and an irresponsible eater. Donkey Kong has some really cool barrel bites themed after him and the Donkey Kong franchise as a whole, which is really cool. Although, can I just point out that this guy gets one costume? Yeah, Donkey Kong, you know, the longest living Mario World character. You know who gets more costumes than Donkey Kong? Lakitu and Birdo. Just not fair. That being said, Donkey Kong is a responsible eater. Cataquack resembles a duck, and remember that meat production sort of list I talked about earlier? Apparently duck is produced more than turkey, and although in Mario Kart World there is a lot of meat on the menu, I just can't see anything that resembles a duck here, so I'm gonna say Cataquack is a responsible eater. Pianta seems to be some sort of humanoid creature mixed with a palm tree and has other growing leaves as part of its body. And you guessed it, there are indeed a lot of dishes on the menu in Mario Kart World with leaves, so as weird as it is and as innocent as this guy looks, he is eating his own kind, therefore an irresponsible eater. Rocky Wrench just seems to be a combination of Monty Mole and a Koopa Trooper, meaning he is a double responsible eater. Conkdor needs a lot more recognition than he's getting. This guy is so cool and a responsible eater. Swoop is adorable, and fun fact, when I first saw Swoop in a race in Mario Kart World, I thought my game was glitched because I didn't really realize how small they actually made him in this game. He looks so tiny, and as much as he loves to suck blood, there are no bats on the menu, therefore a responsible eater. Fishbone is such a weird character, and similar to Dry Bones, he was once a fish, but now all that's left is bones and a creepy eye. Now, I don't believe the bones that this guy is made of feature in the lava curry, although there are, like we said earlier, fish and chips in the game. Now, apparently for the production of battered fish, even worldwide, for that to contain any sort of bone trace is pretty low, but not impossible. So for the sake of being cynical and for this video, I'm gonna say that Fishbones is eating its own kind, eating its own bony flesh, and therefore an irresponsible eater. Coin Coffer is a purse. This is probably one of the most random characters Nintendo decided to add into the game. He obviously isn't eating any purses, although I do have to wonder why he's bothering to collect coins in races, considering, you know, throwing up coins is his thing. I'm gonna say he's a responsible eater though. Dolphin, another amazingly creative name by Nintendo, is in fact not a fish. Dolphins are mammals, therefore Dolphin could not be contained in the fish and chips on the menu, therefore Dolphin is a responsible eater. Thank God. Although he does drive a cart, you know, themed after him, which is pretty strange. Wario is just a human, although he does have a wasp costume in the game. Wario, as irresponsible as he is overall, is a responsible eater. And with all that said, as evil as Waluigi is, the same goes for him, responsible eater. Pokey resembles a cactus, and there are a number of dishes that have Pokey featured in them in a pita bread sort of dish. But I believe these are clearly just purely decoration. However, in Mexico, apparently some cactuses' buds are used in cuisine. And adding pita bread to that dish would simply make it a great option for veggies. So maybe the Pokey in this pita bread dish isn't actually just decoration. So again, for the sake of this video, I'm going to say Pokey is another irresponsible eater. Penguin is completely innocent and a responsible eater, and Nintendo and you guys should stop throwing him off cliffs. Spike is such an interesting character. I remember playing Mario Party 10 and just being confused as why he's an unlockable character. It just seemed like a really random pick from Nintendo, but he's back in this game where he fits in more since you can play as any character in this game. Now I can't really tell what Spike is apart from some subspecies of Koopa, considering he has a shell. Therefore, all I can say is he's cute and a responsible eater. And finally, we have Charging Chuck, another random guy, and I do think it's funny how Nintendo decided to keep him in, even though his whole thing is, you know, charging, and you can't do that in a cart, and you're stuck in the cart in this game. Anyway, Charging Chuck is obviously some sort of Koopa Trooper, therefore a responsible eater. So there we have it. We've gone through the entire cast of Mario Kart World and some of their costumes, and to be honest, I'm surprised at how many are eating their own. And some, obviously, like we've been through, do require a deeper inspection to find out the truth. Although the cow, I just can't get over how on the nose that is. But apparently Nintendo's inclusion of a wider cast all stemmed from this fun doodle someone had at Nintendo, which is really cute. Although when they later came up with food, their response to a cow being able to eat a hamburger there for itself, they kind of just laughed at. And they revealed this in an interview where they said they kind of liked the fun and weirdness of it and did acknowledge that yes, cannibalism is in Mario Kart World, but they just basically said we don't care. So the answer to the question we've all been waiting for, just how many as a percentage of the Mario Kart cast are eating themselves, therefore cannibals, therefore very bad. Very bad. Well, not including costumes, there are a total of 50 unique playable characters in the game, and as we've worked out, 15 of those characters are irresponsible eaters. Which means in Mario Kart World, a total of 30% of the playable cast are indeed cannibals, which is oddly surprising. Diddy Kong would never.